from your local election headquarters. This is Politics Today with Jackie Kingston.
The Queen of England, 96-year-old Elizabeth II, died on Thursday. We'll hear reaction from lawmakers and the president. The city of Amarillo has approved the new tax rate, what that means for next year's taxes coming up. Good morning, everyone. It was a bit of a shock on Thursday when we heard the news that after 7 decades on the throne, Queen Elizabeth II has died. Many on Capitol Hill reacted to her passing and paid their respects. Politics Today Washington correspondent Basil John has more about the response from lawmakers and the president.
From the White House to the Capitol building, flags flew at House staff in honor of Queen Elizabeth II.
I had the opportunity to meet her before she passed, and she was an incredibly gracious and decent woman.
President Joe Biden expressed his condolences to her family and country.
And the thoughts and prayers of the American people are with the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth in their grief.
During her reign, the Queen met 13 U.S. presidents, like Harry Truman, Ronald Reagan, and most recently, President Biden. Over on Capitol Hill, the Senate looked back and reflected on her legacy.
It is a marvel to think that on the day of Her Majesty's coronation, Harry Truman was in the White House.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell came together and expressed the influence she had, not only on her country, but others.
She didn't just witness the great turns of history. She helped shape them over the 7 decades of her reign.
The decades of Her Majesty's reign saw an intense deepening of the special relationship and close bond between the United States and the United Kingdom.
The House of Representatives returns next week. Lawmakers plan to pass a bereavement resolution and adjourn for the day in her honor. Thursday, the Amarillo City Council finalized a lower tax rate and a budget that will take effect on October 1st. Politics Today's Kaylee Green has the latest from city officials about what taxpayers can expect, as well as the council's priorities moving forward.
Amarillo Mayor Ginger Nelson says the city council has finalized lowering the tax rate from 44 cents down to 40 cents.
So if you're a property owner and your house is worth $100,000, then your property tax bill just went down by $3 every month. City taxes.
The council also finalizing a budget with increased public safety spending.
You'll see that there's funding in this budget for 15 new firefighters, 4 new police officers, a new fire station out by the hospital district. We also put employee raises in here, especially for CDL drivers in our solid waste, because we want to return to twice-a-week trash pickup.
She says that's in addition to other services like 911, clean water, first responders, and maintenance. Amarillo City Manager Jared Miller says the council was initially ready to implement a tax rate of 49 cents to include the Civic Center project.
Because of the timing and the way all of the different things that we're working through to evaluate and determine whether or not we're going to move forward with the Civic Center, when we're going to move forward with it, we know that we can delay and defer, rather, implementing that tax rate necessary to pay for the debt service on the Civic Center until October of 2023.
The mayor says the Civic Center project is still a priority for the council, even as ongoing litigation in Potter County stalls any movement.
Until all of that is resolved, we do not want to collect taxes from taxpayers until we're ready to move forward.
Miller says the city still has the capacity to move forward with the Civic Center project if and when they get the green light.
Miller also adds that because property values are up, the tax rate has been compressed, but the city is still making more tax revenue with the lower rate. Reporter David Gay has detailed coverage on the litigation that continues surrounding the Civic Center project. That's all waiting for you on myhighplains.com. Potter County leaders say the number of evictions in our county is increasing. Justice of the Peace Precinct 1 Debbie Horn says the main factor is non-payment of rent and breach of contract. Politics Today's Jack Kessler has details from Judge Horn and the constables who serve eviction notices.
Potter County Constable, hello.
Constable Precinct 1 Daryl Wirtz says in 2021 he brought in $61,000 in revenue with civil process, and this year he's already surpassed that.
This year, the first 8 months, I'm at $81,000 in revenue. So I've increased $20,000 in revenue. Usually the years before that, I would set it about $75,000 in revenue, and now I'm way past that.
Constable Wirtz says the eviction process starts by someone not paying rent or breaching their lease.
Landlord will give 3-day notice to vacate. Usually it's 3 days. Some leases have 24 hours. If the person doesn't vacate after that, the landlord comes to JP court, files an eviction citation. I get that citation. It's the court date for the eviction hearing. Usually it's about 10 to 20 days out. I go serve that, notify the tenant of their court date. Then it'll come to court, and if the landlord gets a judgment, then if the people still don't move out, 5 to 6 days after that, they can get a writ of possession, or what's called a move out.
Constable Wirtz adds it's best for both landlords and tenants to know the property code.
Everything addressed that we come across is covered in the property code. Landlords should protect themselves, but renters should protect themselves, because there are bad landlords like there are bad tenants.
Judge Horn says there are several ways to get rental assistance to avoid eviction.
There's a diversion program that's still in place. If they have the money and you fill it out an application, if you're accepted and the landlord accepts it, then they will pay rent, and depending on the program, how much rent that they will pay.
But adds that process should be started before that eviction citation is filed. Constable Wirtz adds if he was granted one wish, it'd be that everyone would pay their rent on time so he doesn't have to serve an eviction.
It's my job, it's what I have to do, but it's not, nobody says I have to like going and putting people out. It's very stressful and it's getting really dangerous.
Constable Wirtz says typically they'll have at least 2 constables present at a move out, and they can call in assistance from the Amarillo Police Department and Potter County Sheriff's Office if they need to. The Amarillo ISD Police Chief has released a statement addressing his affiliation with the Oath Keepers organization. Police Chief Paul Berquin said, quote, "I have a vague recollection of joining Oath Keepers more than a decade ago at the urging of a fellow first responder. After receiving emails from the organization on my personal email account, I quickly came to realize that the group was not what I expected it to be, so I unsubscribed." Borquin says he hasn't had any affiliation with the group since then. Uvalde students went back to school last week after the mass shooting at Robb Elementary. Coming up, more on the first day as the city continues to recover from that tragedy. I'm Jackie Kingston. You're watching Politics Today from your local election headquarters. Tuesday marked an unimaginable start to the new school year for the Uvalde community. It's the first day back after a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary days before the start of the summer in May. Politics Today's Monica Madden has been covering the story in Uvalde for us. She joins us now with more.
The emotions from May 24th are not lost upon Uvalde parents. Unthinkable fear as they waited helplessly to be reunited with their children, and some reunions never happened.
If she could sit here right now and just so I could touch her and hug her and kiss her and just tell her I loved her, you know, that's something I can't have anymore, you know.
We spoke to Alfred Garza in June, who lost his only daughter, Amory.
I just want her to be remembered as the beautiful soul she was.
Loyal and true. Uvalde strong.
Uvalde CISD pointing to its new measures to increase security.
There has been substantial fencing that has been replaced. Texas DPS, they will be on campuses each and every day.
The district also upgraded door locks.
Hold it.
But it's not enough for many students still traumatized.
I feel kind of nervous and scared if it's going to happen again.
And for parents like Adam Martinez.
So if we did make them go, we wouldn't feel safe.
His 2 children survived the shooting, but their scars are ever present.
The children have been traumatized by this.
Which is why his kids will start the school year from their home, learning virtually.
I feel like if the children are scared, it's going to be hard for them to learn.
Some parents have raised questions about whether officers who have been faulted for failing to act quickly enough during the shooting are now still responsible for keeping campuses safe. The state is also sending 33 DPS troopers to Uvalde campuses to help bolster security, but the trust issues from parents when it comes to school safety will remain. Despite calls from the Uvalde community to do so, Governor Abbott says Texas can't legally raise the age limit to buy semi-automatic weapons. At least 7 states already passed laws raising the age limit purchasing rifles to 21. But Governor Abbott points to recent court rulings which might put those laws at risk, like a June Supreme Court ruling expanding the right to carry a handgun, which led to a recent federal court ruling striking down Texas's prohibition of 18 to 20-year-olds from carrying a handgun.
If you had asked me 3 months ago
it will be harder to justify this position. Under current law, I think there's now some doubt over whether a ban for rifles under the age of 18 would violate the Second Amendment.
We do want to note the U.S. Supreme Court has never specifically considered age restrictions for any type of weapon. The High Court most likely won't take up the issue anytime soon. Documents show the head of Texas's top law enforcement agency said no one is losing their jobs over state police response to the Uvalde school shooting massacre. This is according to timestamped notes that we obtained from an August meeting where the head of DPS, Steve McGraw, addressed his captains. But Politics Today's Monica Madden is back to explain why someone still could be fired.
According to transcripts from the meeting, Director Stephen McCraw said that DPS leaders stepped up to meet the moment.
But DPS officials say that is missing context. An agency spokesperson tells us that Director McCraw was responding to a specific question about whether one particular agency official would be fired following the mass shooting, to which McCraw replied no. DPS says it is working to investigate where the notes originated from. According to the August notes, McCraw also told staff that leaders overseeing the Uvalde region did what they were supposed to do, but also acknowledged criticism of law enforcement's delayed and chaotic response to the May 24th shooting. The documents note he said the response will change how we respond to active shooter events, as it should. Just this week, DPS did announce it is investigating 5 of its own officers, 2 of which have been suspended with pay. Since the Uvalde school shooting, the state's top law enforcement agency has largely deflected blame to local Uvalde police, despite outnumbering them 2-to-1 that day.
And according to the meeting notes, McCraw also recommended that DPS has presence on Texas schools when possible, noting that many of them are vulnerable. In Austin, Monica Madden, back to you.
School districts all across the state, including here on the High Plains, had their students and staff wear maroon to show their support for the Uvalde community last week. One of the districts was Canyon ISD. This is footage of staff and students of Lakeview Elementary showing their support by wearing maroon. And Governor Abbott's program to bus migrants around the country is costing taxpayers plenty of money. Coming up next, how much? We'll find out. Attorney General Ken Paxton was in Amarillo Tuesday meeting the community. He provided insight on his campaign efforts and shared updates on lawsuits filed on behalf of the state of Texas.
It's always exciting for me to basically try to right a wrong where consumers have been misled, bring the money back to Texas. And then, for instance, a lot of times that money can be used for good programs like, with opioids. We're going to end up spending well over $2 billion in the end on the opioid crisis.
Texas Senator Kel Seliger announces his support for candidate Mike Collier. Officials with the Seliger campaign's office say he will vote for Collier for lieutenant governor. There is no additional information from Seliger available at this time. We're learning Governor Greg Abbott's migrant busing initiative is costing even more than previously thought. We'd reported Texas has paid about $12 million to send migrants on buses to D.C., New York City, and now Chicago. The governor says he's doing it to ease the burden of immigration on Texas cities. Politics Today correspondent Monica Madden is back, obtaining detailed invoices from the state showing as of August 18th, costs continue to rise.
State records from the Texas Department of Emergency Management, or TDEM, has been tasked with chartering the nearly 200 buses, and their records show that Texas has sent more than 8,000 migrants, costing the state more than $14.1 million. That's of August 18th, so those records don't include figures from the recent buses sent in the last 3 weeks, which now includes Chicago. According to those records, the most expensive part of these trips is the security. You can see in this invoice from Wind Transportation, in one instance, the company charged TDEM $61,000 for security guards on May 20th. That's a day when 19 migrants arrived in D.C. The drivers also cost tens of thousands of dollars collectively. A spokesperson for TDEM tells me they saw security as essential for protecting passengers and drivers as they make a cross-country trip. And all of these trips are being paid for mostly by Texas taxpayers. The state tells me these buses are being paid for from money appropriated by the legislature for Operation Lone Star. That's the governor's border initiative. And some of the funds are also coming from the governor's donation portal, but that accounts for more than $300,000. In Austin, Monica Madden, back to you.
Up next, the White House COVID response team says it needs more funding. Coming up, how it could impact a possible fall surge in cases. And we'll also take a look at the latest on the investigation into classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. Welcome back. New booster shots have experts hopeful we can avoid a fall COVID surge, but the White House COVID team says the pandemic could get worse if Congress doesn't act. They say their pandemic budget is running out, and now that Congress is back from break, they're pleading with lawmakers to pass more COVID funding. Politics Today Washington correspondent Hannah Brandt has details.
It may be time for a trip to your local pharmacy.
Get your updated COVID-19 shot as soon as you are eligible.
A new booster was just approved specifically to fight the latest variant. The White House COVID team says this could become an annual routine.
I really believe this is why God gave us two arms, one for the flu shot and the other one for the COVID shot.
But along with this rollout, they have a warning.
While we may have the vaccines today for folks for this fall vaccine effort, we don't know what's coming next.
They already asked Congress to pass more pandemic funding 6 months ago, but that didn't happen, and the White House says their COVID budget has been dwindling ever since. In order to make these new boosters free and widely available, they say they had to make tough choices and cut things like their free test website.
We need to play the long game against this virus. That is going to require additional resources from Congress.
Right now, Congress is debating a new budget for the upcoming year, and the White House team says lawmakers have a responsibility.
It is now critical that you step up and provide additional COVID-19 funding so we can stay ahead of this virus.
Specifically, the White House is requesting $22 billion for future COVID vaccines, testing, and research. A major development will slow down the investigation into classified documents seized from former President Trump's Florida home. A federal judge granted the Trump legal team's request for a third party known as a special master to review the evidence seized. Alice Barr has the latest.
A federal judge pumping the brakes on the criminal investigation into classified documents seized from former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. In a win for the Trump legal team, Judge Aileen Cannon granting the request for an independent special master to review the evidence and determine if anything should be returned. The Trump-appointed judge temporarily blocking the Justice Department from using the seized materials for its investigation, though she said an intelligence assessment can continue to determine whether improper handling of some of the government's most closely guarded secrets jeopardizes national security. The Justice Department can appeal, saying in a very brief statement it's considering next steps.
The longer this gets discussed in the public, the further off their game prosecutors are going to be thrown, because this is not their arena. This arena is much better suited for a former reality TV star.
Judge Cannon finding the former president's rights have been protected so far, but citing the need for more oversight, given the unprecedented nature of this case. Over the weekend, former President Trump made his first public appearance since the search.
They're trying to silence me, and more importantly, they are trying to silence you.
He offered no explanation for why the FBI found 103 classified documents and 48 empty folders marked for highly classified secrets. It all comes amid the final stretch before the midterm elections. President Biden on the road today in two key swing states, again slamming what he calls extreme MAGA Republicans.
We remain in the battle for the soul of America.
The president ramping up his campaigning in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, where closely watched races could prove critical to Democrats trying to keep control of the Senate. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
The Justice Department on Thursday appealed a court-ordered special master review of the materials seized by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago, arguing the order was putting national security at risk. We'll wrap things up here on Politics Today, right after this. Well, thanks as always for spending part of your Sunday morning with us here on Politics Today. Don't forget to register to vote. The deadline is coming up quickly to register to vote in the midterm elections. The deadline is in the early days of October. So just get it out of the way. Register now. The League of Women Voters Online can help you find all of those reputable sources on which to register with the Secretary of State's office. Don't forget that you can follow along with us on social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, Jackie Kingston plus the number 1. I love your feedback. And don't forget that you can follow along with us throughout the week on myhighplains.com for the latest political news. Thanks as ever for being here. We hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you soon.